A blessed day to each and everyone. This is Francisco III P. Palma, a Doctor of Education, major in Physical Education student, and we'll be discussing under the physiological basis of physical education in sports, the Unit 3 muscle and the Unit 4 interval training. Muscle function plays a central role in physical performance and overall health, with its intricate structures and mechanisms being fundamental to movement. Into the physiological basis of muscle strength, endurance, flexibility, and motor learning, offering an in-depth exploration of muscle anatomy, the sliding filament theory of contraction, and the key factors that influence muscle performance, the relationship between muscle training components and their application to physical education in sports, emphasizing the significance of muscle adaptation and optimization for athletic success. Additionally, internal interval training is explored as a powerful method for improving both aerobic and anaerobic capacities. With its varying intensities and work to rest ratio, interval training fosters cardiovascular endurance, muscle strength, and efficient fat loss. This is also a comprehensive understanding for the benefit of interval training, including its physiological foundation and its potential to enhance athletic performance across different training modalities. So, by integrating this concept, bridging the gap between muscle physiology and practical training applications, and physical education in sports, contributing to the development of more effective training programs for athletes and individual alike. First up, we have the gross structure of muscle. Muscles are critical components in human movement and are classified into three primary types: skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. To physical education sports, skeletal muscle is the primary focus. Skeletal muscle are connected to bones by tendons, and their primary function is to facilitate voluntary movements. So the structure of skeletal muscle is hierarchical. So first up, we have the muscle fibers, the individual muscle cells, fascicles, bundles of muscle fibers wrapped in a connective tissue sheath called perimysium. And we have also the muscle. The entire muscle, composed of multiple fascicles, is surrounded by a layer of connective tissue called epimysium. So for the key components within the muscle fiber include sarcolemma, the plasma membrane of the muscle cell; sarcoplasm, the cytoplasm of the muscle fiber which contains myofibrils; and the myofibrils, the contractile element of muscle fibers consisting of repeating section called sarcomeres. So next up, the microscopic structure, the basis for contraction. The microscopic structure of muscle fibers reveals the fundamental mechanism behind muscle contraction, the sliding filament theory. So this theory involves the interaction of two types of myofilaments. We have the actin and the myosin. For the actin are also called as the thin filaments, are primarily composed of the protein actin along with the regulatory proteins like trypomyosin and the troponin. They are anchored with the Z-line of the sarcomere. So myosin or thick filaments are made of the protein myosin, which has a head region that interacts with the actin. These filaments are bipolar, with the myosin heads extending towards the Z-line. We have also the sarcomere, the functional unit of the muscle contraction, containing overlapping actin and myosin filaments. For the sliding filament theory, during contraction, the myosin heads bind to actin, pulling the actin filaments towards the center of the sarcomere, causing it to shorten. We have also the muscle contraction. The coordinated shortening of the multiple sarcomeres within a muscle fiber results in the muscle contraction. So in a relaxed state, the actin and the myosin filaments are partially overlap. When a muscle is stimulated by a nerve impulse via release of acetylcholine at the neuromuscular junction, calcium are released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum along with the actin and myosin filaments to interact. So this results in the sliding filaments which shorten the sarcomere and the leads to muscle contraction. So this also a contraction process is powered by ATP, which provides the energy needed for myosin heads to pull actin filaments, initiating muscle shortening, as you can observe in the photo presented. Next, we have the strength, endurance, and flexibility. We have the strength. Muscle strength refers to the ability of a muscle or group of muscle to generate force. It determined by factors such as muscle cross-sectional area, fiber type, composition such as fast twitch versus slow twitch, and the neuromuscular coordination. Training for strength typically involves resistance exercises that focuses on maximizing force production, which results in hypertrophy or muscle growth. Endurance, muscle endurance refers to the ability of a muscle to sustain repeated contractions over an extended period. Unlike strength, which focuses on the maximal force, endurance emphasizes the ability to perform repeated submaximal efforts without fatigue. Endurance training involves exercises that includes the efficiency of energy production within muscles, often focusing on aerobic fat pathways and increasing mitochondrial density. Flexibility refers to the range of motion, or ROM, around a joint. It is influenced by the length of the muscles and the extensibility of the surrounding connective tissues. So flexibility training enhances the ability of muscles to stretch and move through their full range of motion, preventing injury and improving performance. It involves activities such as stretching, yoga, and dynamic warm-ups. So the interplay, strength, endurance, and flexibility often overlap in physical training. So for example, athletes must balance these concepts to optimize performance, reduce injury risk, and ensure functional fitness. Each component can be improved with a specific training regimens and modality. Last, we have the motor learning. So the motor learning is a process by which individuals acquire and refine motor skills. It involves changes in the brain's neural pathways that lead to improved coordination, precision, and control of movements. So motor learning is crucial in physical education and sports for skill acquisition, improvement, and performance. So the stages of motor learning are as follows. First up, we have the cognitive stage. The individual is learning the movement and is consciously aware of what they need to do. So this stage requires focus and often involves trial and error. Next, we have the associative stage. Movements become more refined and the individual starts to make fewer errors. It is a practice that leads to increased efficiency and smoother execution. And last, we have the autonomous stage. The movement becomes automatic and a little conscious effort is needed to perform the task. This is typically reached by athletes with years of practice. So the key principles of motor learning involve or include feedback, practice schedules, and mental rehearsal. Effective feedback can be intrinsic, coming from the athlete's sensory system, or extrinsic, from a coach or a trainer. The use of deliberate practice is also fundamental to advancing motor skills and performance. Next, we have the interval training. It refers to the type of training that alternates between period of high intensity activity and a low intensity recovery or rest. This method is widely used in both endurance and strength training to maximize cardiovascular and muscular adaptations. By manipulating the intensity and duration of the work and rest intervals, athletes can target different physiological systems. We have the physiological basis for interval training. Interval training is beneficial because it trains both the aerobic and anaerobic energy system. Aerobic system engaged during the lower intensity intervals. It relies on oxygen to produce ATP and helps increase cardiovascular endurance. While an aerobic system activated during high-intensity intervals, it produces energy without oxygen, improving muscle strength, speed, and lactate tolerance. So training interval enhances the maximal oxygen uptake or VO2 max, which is an indicator of the aerobic fitness, and improves the lactate threshold, which is the point at the state lactate begins to accumulate in the blood. The efficiency of both the cardiovascular and muscular system is optimized through regular interval training. Next, we have the types of interval training. First up, we have the high intensity interval training or the HIIT. HIIT involves short bursts of extremely high intensity work followed by longer recovery periods. It is effective for improving cardiovascular fitness, fat loss, and metabolic conditioning. Second, we have the sprint interval training or the SIT, specific form of HIIT that focuses on all-out sprints, typically followed by a full recovery periods. SIT is often used to improve anaerobic power and speed. And last, we have the Tabata training, a form of HIIT that involves 20 seconds of maximal effort followed by 10 seconds of rest, repeated for 4 minutes or 8 rounds. Tabata training is intense and has been shown to significantly improve both aerobic and anaerobic capacity. Next, we have the benefits of interval training. So interval training offers numerous benefits, including improved cardiovascular health, muscle endurance and strength, fat loss, time efficiency. Improved cardiovascular health, it increases the heart rate variability and VO2 max. Muscle endurance and strength, it helps improve both aerobic and anaerobic muscle. Fat loss, due to the high intensity nature of the training, it elevates post-exercise metabolism and leads to greater calorie burn even after the workout. And time efficiency. Interval training can yield significant benefits in a shorter amount of time compared to traditional steady state endurance training. While interval training is highly effective, it must be tailored to athletes' fitness level and goals. So for beginners, more moderate intervals may be necessary, while elite athletes can push their intensity and interval duration. Furthermore, recovery strategies like nutrition, hydration, and rest are critical to optimize training adaptation and prevent overtraining. In conclusion, understanding the physiological basis of muscle function and how training affects muscle strength, endurance, flexibility, and motor learning is essential for designing effective physical education and sports program. Combining strength and endurance training with flexibility exercises ensures a well-rounded approach, while interval training offers a time-efficient method to maximize cardiovascular and muscular adaptations, whether for athletic performance or general health. These principles provide the foundation for enhancing physical fitness and optimizing movement efficiency. Once again, this is Francisco III P. Palma, a Doctor of Education, major in Physical Education student, and thank you for listening.